Bienvenidos, Ushamdid, and welcome Anne Arundel Community College learners from the CTS-131 Section 402 course for the spring 2021 semester. This is the Cisco Networking Academy's SRWEv7 course curriculum, or the Switching, Routing, Wireless Essentials course curriculum. And in this packet tracer activity, we're going to be taking a look at another Module 1 packet tracer, 1.4.7, where we're going to be configuring some router interfaces. And we're going to be doing both IPv4 and IPv6 configurations. So let's take a look at the topology as it exists here. And you can see that this is not a difficult activity by any stretch of the imagination. However, we need to make sure that we get the subnet mask information right. And you can notice here, they did not give you the subnet mask in dotted decimal notation. They provided it in CIDR or slash notation, as sometimes you'll hear it referred to. So we're going to have to figure out what a /25 would be or a /30 in terms of a dotted decimal subnet mask. All right. So we also have user exec and privilege exec passwords we're going to be dealing with. So let's go ahead and dive in here. So router 1 is going to be all about IPv4. So let's get our password in here of Cisco and our privilege exec password of class. And so here we are in privilege exec mode. Now I can say show IP interface brief. And as you can see, the serial interface has been configured that would take us to, whoops, sorry, I can't move the device, that would take us to the internet here and give us connectivity to the dual stack server. And that is how we're going to be testing to see if we got things right or not. So on router 1, let's get into global configuration mode. And I'm simply going to do the interfaces in the order they show up here. Now, gig 00 and gig 01, we could take a look at the IP address and then figure out which interface should be gig 00. So gig 00 is going to be our northbound, or this top interface here. And again, we can conclusively sort that out by saying interface gigabit Ethernet 00 and no shut, right? And we can even throw a description in here, right? We can say PC1 LAN interface. I could even put in my initials, maybe the date that I am doing the configuration, and maybe even a CCR number, right? 8675309. Always a good idea to add descriptions with some information so that if someone coming after you goes to configure this interface, they're going to have some sort of an idea as to who did it, when, and they could take a look at the CCR to see why. So with that interface up, let's get the IP address configured here. So the IP is going to be 172.16.20.1. However, now we've got to sort out this subnet mask because they didn't give us the dotted decimal notation. So let me go ahead and pull up my drawing tool here. And again, we have a class B address, right? But it's been subnetted down to a /25. And what that means is, and I'm not going to draw out each of the individual bits here. So we've got 8 bits here, and 8 bits here, and 8 bits here. And these are all dedicated to the network portion of the address. And then we get into the last octet. And here's where I'll draw out all 8, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we've borrowed one of the host bits out of the last octet. Now, arguably, we've borrowed other host bits, but again, in this last octet, which is where our focus is at, we've borrowed that host bit and made it a network bit, meaning here are the remaining host bits. So we've got 7 host bits that are left, and we've got that one host bit that's been borrowed, the leftmost high order bit. So what is, in binary, the value of that bit position? Well, if this is 1, and this is 2, and this is 4, and again, we just simply double up here. This is 8, and this is 16, and here we have 32, and then 64, and then 128. And so now we have our subnet mask and dotted decimal notation. Again, these 8s that are here, it's not saying that the IP address is 8.8.8. It's just saying that all 8 of those bits are part of the network portion of the address. And 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 24, plus 1 gives us the /25. And so the subnet mask in dotted decimal notation would be 255.255.255.128. And I'm going to leave that up there. And let's drop this in here. Let's see if we get some points for this. 128. I think we got 2 percentage points for bringing the port into the upstate. And we just picked up 18 percentage points for getting that correct. All right, so that's the interface on router 1. Now, how can I confirm that that interface is up and functional? Well, let's pull PC1 up here, give ourselves a little bit more room with which to work. Let's come to the desktop and let's ping. So can I ping 172.16.20.1? And PC1 is probably going to send an ARP request out, right? We've got the layer 2 information, but I'm sorry, we have the layer 3 information, which is the IP, but I don't have the layer 2 information. And let's see what happens here. Does anything work? It doesn't work. And what is that going to probably tell us? Well, let's check out and see if the PC is actually configured for an IP address. And it is not configured. So let's add that in. And you can see they give us the address they'd like to have used there, 172.16.20.10. Now, that is auto-magically put in the subnet mask field, but we know that a /25 is going to be 255.255.255.128. My default gateway is, in fact, the interface on router 1 that we just configured, 172.16.20.1, and we're going to pick up 2 points for that. DNS server, no DNS server out there, so we're going to be good to go. So now, let's come back and let's rerun this. And now we've got connectivity, right? So everything looks good on that interface. Let's go back to router 1 and let's configure Gigabit Ethernet 0.1. I'll say no shut, and the link between switch 2 and router 1 should come in or move into the up state, and it does. So now let's go ahead. We could throw a description on here and just say, PC2 LAN interface, right? And let's put an IP address on here, and this should be 172.16.20.129, the first usable IP in the next subnet that follows the subnet we have on top there. Now, one of the nice things is they are sort of doing fixed length subnet masking here. So everything on this left-hand side, with the exception of that transit segment between router 1 and the internet, all of our LAN segments are fixed length subnet masks, meaning if it's a if it's a /25, it's going to be 255.128 on both of those interfaces. And you can see our percentage went up 18 points, again, to 45%. Now, let's go ahead and configure PC2, because as we saw before, the PCs are not configured, and now we kind of know what we're dealing with here. So this is going to be using 172.16.20.138. And again, that is a Class B default subnet mask, but we are not using the default. We are using a /25. And the default gateway is going to be the interface we configured on router 1 gig 01 of 129. And so now we are at 50%. So the left-hand side of the network diagram is configured. No coincidence that it put us at 50%, but let's test. Can I get to my default gateway? 172.16.20.129. That works. More importantly, can I get over to PC1? Let's give that a try. 172.16.20.10. And take a look at that. We've got no issues at all moving between the two different LAN segments. Final check here. Can I get out to 64.100.1.10? So in other words, can I ping the dual stack server that's out here? Now, the first request timed out. We had to do an ARP, an address resolution protocol packet had to be sent saying, hey, I've got the layer 3 information here. How do I get to the layer 2 information that's going to get me to this location? Right? And as you can see, we've got that information and the pings work. So the left-hand side of our diagram is now taken care of. So now let's turn our focus to IPv6. IPv6 and this side of the diagram. So I enter in the console line password there of, or the user exec password, sorry, of Cisco, and then we're going to go into privilege exec with the enable command, and the password here is class. And you can see we're in privilege exec as indicated by that pound sign after router 2. So let's get into global config here, and we're going to approach this in the exact same way. I'm going to go into int gig 00. I'm going to say no shut. That should be the upper network there. And you can see now we all have green upward facing triangles. So everything looks good there. Again, you could throw some kind of a description on here to be a little more exact. And now let's get this IPv6 address configured. Now you'll notice that they give us the IPv6 addresses, the global unicast IPv6 addresses. They don't give us the link local addresses. So let's watch what happens here when I say IPv6 address 2001 db8 colon C0DE for code, spelling code, and colon 12 colon 1 /64. Now, I didn't configure the link local address. So the question is, if it has to have a link local address, which it does for IPv6, what is that link local address? Well, let's take a look here, and let's say do show IPv6, whoops, not IPv5, interface brief. And when we look at gig 00, we can see that the link local was already set to FE80 colon 2. And so this is important to point out. That was pre-configured. You are never going to auto-magically get FE80 colon 2 on router 2 or FE80 colon 1 on router 1 if you leave it up to the EUI64 process, right? So this was pre-configured for us, and if it wasn't, we would have configured it because we want to make sure it's predictable, that it's following some sort of a convention. So FE80 colon 2 for router 2 for our link local is perfect. All right, so that takes care of the gig 01. Now let's test connectivity, but my guess is PC3 is not going to be properly configured here, and we can check that out by looking at the IP address configuration. Now, take a look at the link local here. This is your EUI64 process where FFFE is placed into the middle of what would be the MAC address, and that gives me the 64 bits for the interface ID portion, and then we end up out here with this FE80 colon convention on the front end for the rest of that link local address. So what is our IPv6 address going to be on PC3? I had to take a double check there. And we're going to say it's 2001 colon db8 colon C0DE colon, and PC3 is 12 colon A. Right? Now, I don't say /64 like that. You can see over to the right-hand side, it's kind of set up so that it has its own box. So we'll put our information in there. Here it's FE80 colon. Oh, sorry, that's the default gateway. So the link local address, it had a link local address in here, but I'm going to say FE80 colon A, right? I'm going to make it sort of match what we're using with the global unicast address. And the default gateway is FE80 colon 2. And so we pick up a couple points there. We're now at 75%, but we need to test connectivity. So let's get the command prompt window up here, and let's say ping 2001 colon db8 colon CODE colon, CODE colon, and let me double check router 2, 12 colon 1. All right, we'll take a look at that. We can hit the global unicast address. Can I get to FE80 colon 2? And that's my default gateway, and we can get there as well. So everything looks good there. Let's now go ahead and wrap this up and get into interface gigabit Ethernet 01, where we're going to say no shut. We could, again, put a quick description on here, right? And then we're going to say IPv6 address 2001 colon db8 colon, and where are we at on PC? I'm sorry, router 2 gig 01 colon 13 colon wait a second. Yeah, colon 13 colon 13 colon 1 /64. And I should probably double check. I was getting the serial interface confused with the gig 01 interface. So we should get a few points there for the IPv6 address. Again, the link local is already set. If it wasn't, you would say IPv6 link local IPv6 address link local and IPv6 address FE80::2 link local. There we go. So we would have that in there if we would put that in there if it wasn't already set. And I keep looking back at the addressing table to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Okay, so that looks good on the router interface, and the interface is up. Let's go ahead, 2001 DB8. Oh, you know what? The IPv6 address is wrong, and so that's what I messed up. There we go. IPv6 C0DE:13. Yeah, so as I was getting confused between :11, :12, and :13 for the different interfaces, and that takes us to 95%, which means we're going to come down here to PC4. We're going to open PC4 up here, and we're going to go to the desktop, and we're going to come down to the IPv6 configuration, which is going to be 2001 DB8 CODE:13::A. It's a /64, and I'm going to make this FE80::A. And that is going to work. Our default gateway is FE80::2. And as you can see, that puts us at 100%, but we've got some connectivity to verify here. So can I get to FE80::2, my default gateway of choice, which is the Gig01 interface on router 2? That works. Now, can I get out to 2001 DB8:100:1:A? And I can do that from PC3. Probably a good last check is on PC4. DB8:100:1:A, and we've got connectivity throughout this environment from both an IPv4 as well as an IPv6 perspective. All right, well, that is going to wrap up Packet Tracer Activity 1.4.7, where we configured IPv4 and IPv6 on some different router interfaces. All right, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope to see you in the next video.